Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Changing Tides podcast. In each episode, we invite guests to have honest conversations about their mental health journeys with the goal of destigmatizing mental health within the Asian American Pacific Islander community. Due to the nature of the podcast, we'll be discussing a variety of mental health topics and possibly triggering experiences. While we and the majority of our guests are not trained professionals, we encourage you to practice self-care while listening and seek professional guidance if you or a loved one is in need of support. With that said, let's start the episode.
Hi, my name is Megan, and I would describe my mental health journey as blossoming.
All right. Hi, my name is Donovan, and I would describe my mental health journey as a marathon.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Changing Tides podcast. I am your host, Matthew Yonemura. We're really excited to have great guests again. I realized I didn't do this intentionally, but we've done a lot of podcast episodes with duos lately. Going through and I'm looking. We did the episode with Therapists Talk About. We had Sam and Aussie. We had Sujin and Linda Yoon. And we have another great duo today. I've had the chance to meet them and share space with them a couple of times now, and such great people. They do really great work. I really love going to their events when I've been able to, and I told them in the podcast, and I'm going to keep my word, that I do intend on attending more of their events in the future, and I stand by that, and I mean it. So I'm really excited for them to be able to share their story about how they created their group and their own communities, how their communities have combined. But I'm really excited to see where they go because, they're one of the OGs in this space that they're in, and I think they should get that credit. But yeah, I think that the work that they do is really awesome. I think their stories that they tell on this podcast are great. They're both very resilient in their sports injuries. Give a little teaser about who they are, but these are two great people. I don't know what else to say. I've done 3 different takes trying to describe them more, but I just love both of them, and I'm really excited for you to hear their story. So, without further ado, here is Social Hour Run Club, led by Donovan and Megan. So, Megan and Donovan, thank you both so much for being on the podcast. I know that I inherited the Changing Tides Instagram account once I was hired, and then I was seeing Social Hour Run Club pop up every now and then. I'd see Megan pop up every now and then. And then I can't even remember the first time I met you both. Do you know the first time we got in contact?
So I think the first time you and I have met, Matt, was probably when the Changing Tides event was happening for Ripple Effect.
Got it.
If I think that's correct. And yeah, we had that call and had the meet and greet, but
just like this.
just like this. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the first time we met, and it's kind of blossomed since then with a couple of we've done so far.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah, that sounds about right. But it's been really cool to get to know you guys and participate in some Social Hour Running Club stuff and have you guys attend some Changing Tide stuff. But before I get into, Social Hour and the two of you, I want to kind of start with why you both described your mental health journeys as you did. So, Megan, considering you shared first, I'd love to know why you consider blossoming.
Yes. So, after reflecting, I think I've always been aware, and I feel very fortunate to have the vocabulary and the information on mental health. I think our generation is fortunate in that way, where it's everywhere on Instagram. You can get books on it. And so that awareness has always been there, kind of sprouted in my brain, in my spirit. And I think at this point in my life, I finally felt the pedal start to open and felt that push to actually dig in and do some work. And I'm also that friend and family member who's given folks advice and not necessarily taken it for myself. And I just feel that this is the right time to invest in that piece, to look into myself. And I actually just started therapy it's my 3rd session yesterday.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
It has been great. And it's a benefit of my company. So I definitely encourage anyone else who might have that benefit to take advantage. It's not, it's not often that your company will do that. So being able to sit with someone who isn't connected to me has been great to have that sounding board and just talk through a lot of the things that have been in my brain and get it out there in the universe. And it's exciting. I think that blossoming image for me makes it more positive, less scary, that it's not something to rush and it happens as it should, like nature. So that's where I'm at right now with my journey.
That's all wonderfully said. And just before I jump to Donovan, I wanted to ask you about, you said that you've always kind of had the vocabulary, or, you've always had the vocabulary to describe mental health, but do you think that really started with social media, or was there an openness that you had within your family, or like, where do you think that came from?
I think it's a combination of both. Definitely social media and just I studied communications in my undergrad. So it was interpersonal, organizational, both body language and how to connect with people of different cultures or gender identification. So that part was there. And then I do think part of it is just talking to friends who have gone through therapy, or even my aunt who's a counselor at the University of Washington asking me those questions of why, or why do you think you feel that way? How does it affect you? And it's just always been there. And I've always had an interest in it as someone who likes to connect with other people and with myself, but always had an excuse of being too busy or not putting it at the top priority.
That's awesome. I think whether you just hear it through osmosis and you kind of gain the knowledge through your aunt, I think that sounds like it would be a big part of it, especially like through your teenage years or early teens, like to have that as a sounding board, because especially in like AAPI culture, like people don't ask those types of questions. So that really sounds interesting to me. And then to bring it over to Donovan, you say it's a marathon. It's very fitting with how I know you both. But can you let me know about why you described it the way you did?
Yeah, I feel like it's a marathon only because like a marathon, it's kind of a long journey in the training and the race itself. And so I think I've noticed for my mental health journey, it started as early as like me playing basketball as a kid. I used to be really nervous and afraid to make mistakes. And I know that's stuff that I've had to kind of internalize and try to work on as I got older, with social hour and just in life in general. And so, it's something that I maybe didn't recognize as a kid and as growing up. But now that I'm older and have learned tools, like whether it's from talking to Megan or just from social media or like just other tools that I've learned just throughout life, I could recognize those things as a kid and, things I still struggle with maybe anxiety or like that nervousness. And I'm able to kind of internalize that and kind of work in a positive direction with that. And I think it translates a lot to running because a lot of that stuff that we do for training, it's something that you kind of, learn as you start running, and then you could kind of realize when you do your next race, it's something you could do better on. And so it's always just continued learning in that sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, I'm sorry if it's tough to talk about childhood sports, but if there was a pressure that came from where was the pressure coming from? Was it putting it on yourself? Was it like a parent figure? Was it your coach? Like, where was the pressure coming from?
So it's crazy because like my parents were so encouraging when it came to sports. So it's definitely not from them. They would always be like, try hard, like do your best. I think a lot of it came from internal pressure on yourself and being, your biggest critic. And I'm sure I'm not the one that goes through this, but like afraid to make a mistake because you're gonna get taken out of the game, or like you put all this burden on yourself and you feel like you're failing to meet like meet the state where you're looking for. So I think a lot of it was internal. Obviously, I've had coaches that have been tough on me, but I really think it's more something that I created in my head that
Interesting.
would affect me. And I know that that's also like has affected me in my job sometimes, or like in like school, that wanting to, or basically being afraid to fail. And I think that internal pressure, I think, is definitely coming from the inside versus what's really the reality of it.
Mm.
And so I've kind of learned to, it's okay to make mistakes, and you know, you really can't move forward, and you could really grow from those mistakes, and that's how you move forward and become a better person. So yeah.
I find that your answer is really interesting because I think, what I've learned through therapy with my, like, because I originally was diagnosed with like depression, which is what really brought me to my mental health journey. But I think what I've been going to therapy more recently for is anxiety. And I've learned that anxiety has been something I've really dealt with for a long time and without even knowing it. Like little things like my lifelong challenge to fall asleep at night because I can't stop my brain from thinking, like all those types of things. And I wonder if this is maybe relatable for you, Donovan, specifically, and Megan, you too, but I think because this really goes into what Donovan was saying. You know, do you think that you've had like you hold yourself to a higher standard than you hold others? Like, do you think that you're putting, like in all aspects of life, you've kind of had pressure on yourself?
I would think that was the case like very early on, and even recent as like a young adult. But yeah, I think that would be true.
Uh-huh.
And I resonate kind of what you were saying with, because I remember like anxiety is actually something I don't speak about a lot, but something I go through, I think, quite a bit. Um, like even talking at social hour, you see these people like every day, and there's days where like we'll have a big group, especially coming back from COVID. That was really tough.
Mm.
And just getting super anxious, making announcements, like something so little like that, or you know, just getting really nervous, or I don't know. Sometimes it still happens. I'm not gonna lie, but yeah, it's something that I think that I probably deal with pretty often, but just have been better about it.
Mm.
Recent, yeah.
Megan, is that something you could relate to?
Yeah, I would. I think some of the things I'm learning, the tools like attachment styles and things like that. I think my also holding myself to a high standard, not wanting to never let them see you sweat. But I've
Yeah.
had a lot of examples of how being vulnerable has been beneficial and that everyone's self-conscious about something, and even the people that you think might be perfect and have everything figured out don't. And
Hmm.
some I might be that person of Megan knows what she's doing, she's so independent, but I for sure struggle, and maybe that is why I feel like I might have some sort of responsibility to be a role model to my niece or to
Mm.
folks in the community. But I've always found that when I do let my guard down and admit to those faults, it's people are there to support me, like Donovan and my friends who I don't have to know it all or do it all well.
Hmm.
But yes, every still to this day, even the little things of daily life things make me anxious, but learning to um, deal with it and find the paths and give myself grace has been really helpful.
Hmm. I I think that's just something that I think it's a universal issue or a universal problem that a lot of people face of that standard piece. But I've noticed a lot of it definitely has to do with the AAPI community and BIPOC folks in general because you know um, generational trauma of what our ancestors or our parents went through is like, oh well, if they had dealt with all that, then you have to hold yourself to a certain standard, or they sacrifice so much, so then we have to do X, Y, and Z. I think that's a piece of it, but I also just think it has to do with we all face with the model minority myth as well to an extent. So I think there's a lot at play, and I think it's good that you guys have each other to talk about it, as well as Megan, with you starting therapy. I think I've learned that I dive a lot into that when I didn't expect to, but that ended up being a lot of discussion. Um, you mentioned your communities that you're involved with, and one of those is social hour. But I kind of want to start even further before starting social hour. And Megan, I know at least one piece is the Orange County Buddhist Church. Like your family and you are very involved there. But what role does like the JA community as a whole play in your life?
It's a big piece of my identity, I would say. I think my first sense of community was family and family is OCBC and Little Tokyo. So I think growing up, it was just, it's in my DNA, like you were saying, there's generational trauma, but there's generational wisdom and learnings. And I don't know if it's through nurture or nature of my parents showing me the way, or literally in my genes to give back and be part of something bigger than myself. But I was just born into it. And the JA community in particular, I think through programs like Kizuna and now LTSC and all those organizations that do great work, I was able to learn this at a young age of what you're talking about, the sacrifices of our community, and that OCBC, the Budokan don't just pop up overnight. It is because of struggle and resilience that we were excluded from normal basketball leagues and had to form our own. And I think that learning the history of our community and my family in specific, the notion of lifting as you climb, because we have a lot of privilege because of that. And what's been great about blending community and culture is I can use what I've learned and the resources and the amazing community that at least in Southern California, and these, highly densely Japanese American populations have built over decades, using that to as a template and to help other communities that don't have that, who might be more recently immigrated or don't have the same rallying call that we had because of the war or whatnot. So I think one, it helped me find my path and voice, and all of those youth organizations that gave me mentorship and confidence in myself. And then now, as I am serving somewhat as a bridge, I think it's showing me that not every community has what we have, and how can we use that and advocate with and act in solidarity with others. So yes, it's a huge part of who I am, and I feel that responsibility to give back within it, but also share it outwardly and bring other folks in through my different networks.
Totally. And it's so interesting, or I always come back to this whenever I talk about, the JA basketball leagues, is for one, I never knew what OCBC stood for until I started working at Changing Tides. I was like, oh, it's just another basketball league. I was like, it took me forever to learn that FOR stood for Friends of Richard. I was like, what name or association is OCBC if I'm basing it off of the league I was in, FOR? So, I've learned all of this like later on, and something I wish I knew earlier was why these leagues started. When I was in first grade, I got enrolled in FOR, but I didn't know what any of that meant. I wish someone would sit every kid down at some point, maybe in like middle school, be like, hey, this is why these leagues started, and that's why they're still around, because like to keep that culture. Because I used to feel like, why are we excluding everyone else? At one point I was like, why is it only for Asians? I didn't understand it. And I also didn't take as much pride in it, because I was like, oh, I went to a primarily white school, so I was like, oh, I just play club basketball. I didn't tell anyone. It's like I play in like these JA basketball leagues, because I didn't know the relevance of it. So, I think similar to you, I've been learning as I've been going about some things that I kind of just grew up in, but turns out it's been a really big piece of identity and also culture. And I think that's been a really cool thing to kind of learn over time. And then, Donovan, I wanted to ask you about the role that the Filipino community has played in your life.
Yeah, so, well, first I wanted to talk about the your experience with the JA community with basketball, because I was in the same boat where I played in these leagues too growing up,
Yeah.
which is awesome that they welcome, Filipinos to play in these Asian leagues. And I didn't know what any of it meant either. And it's great that I played for OCBC at one point, and I'm like, oh, Megan, we reconnect over like SEO and everything, and we talk about like, oh, I played for your church, and I had no idea what I was playing for at the time. So I really appreciate that kind of experience I was able to get from that. But going back to your question with the Filipino community and what kind of role it plays in my life, I would say that, early on I was doing a lot of things with my church. There was a little Filipino community that was at the church I went to, and I would, do all the like Filipino culture night stuff and do the dances and go through the motions. And it's something that I'm very grateful my mom would put me in these programs for. Maybe not recognizing the importance of it and like the meaning behind a lot of it, but I'd definitely say that it's something that when I got older, I kind of I would say this not by choice, but kind of fell out of that community for a little bit. And so, with the rise of like social media and seeing like all these cool things that, creators are doing in the Filipino community, and, being able to lead my own community with Social Hour and being a Filipino creator, it's something that I've definitely wanted to, that I felt like motivation to like really reconnect with and kind of explore my Filipino heritage more. Not that I'm not proud of it, but more that I could do a better job of kind of learning more about my family's culture and just being Filipino in general. And I think a lot of Filipino Americans go through that same thing. And also seeing Megan's, relationship with the JA community, it would be great to see and find what are those, or like what does the Filipino community have that's like that? And if not, can we offer something like that with Social Hour to bring a cool, like welcoming community as well for Filipinos essentially. So.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because my girlfriend Lauren, she's Filipino as well, and it's for her like she grew up with other like a lot of her Filipino friends came up through dance, so they knew each other for the longest time. But a lot of it just has to do with like culture being within the family. There's not as many, or at least to my knowledge, there's not as many cultural institutions like for the Filipino community as there are for the JA community. Like there's so many of these organizations and programs encouraging, the Japanese American culture to thrive and survive. And, I do think like, because I've seen some of the work that you guys have done with Social Hour and, the wide range of people that come through Social Hour. And I do think there is a sense of that community within Social Hour because, unfortunately, historic Filipino town, it doesn't have as much of a backing as like Little Tokyo does. So, I'm hoping, I've had this discussion with my partner, Lauren, like, I hope like, I always butcher this quote, but the tide lifts all boats, type of thing where, hopefully we could all kind of learn from one another to uplift one another's communities. So, I don't think it's a fault to you or any Filipino American to fall out of culture at one point or another, whether you come back to it or not, because I just don't think there's as many communities encouraging it, So I think it's just a tough balance to strike. Sorry, I got on my soapbox a little bit, but it's just something that spoke to me in hearing from you. And I just had Lauren on the podcast last week, so the discussion's fresh.
I could add to that and just reflecting on the generational difference. I'm a Yonsei fourth generation, and I was fortunate to be able to speak with my grandparents who went through World War II as second generation, and they had that same, well, because of the war, distancing themselves from their cultural heritage and wanting to be American and assimilate. And I think that might be similar to what Donovan's, parents might have had to go through as a new immigrant or facing, discrimination. And that's something we're fortunate not to have as much. There for sure definitely is discrimination out there, but I think that difference, and I'm excited that our generation in general is interested in and wanting to reconnect. And there are a lot more resources now than there were back then.
Yeah. So Donovan, what generation are you?
If I get this right, I believe I am second generation Filipino. So
That's how
my parents, they were the first ones to come here from the Philippines.
Got it.
Yeah. Okay, I was like, I'm gonna butcher this, but Megan's called me out on this. Let me try.
No, there's both ways. Some people say the first
Yeah,
one's
Right,
born here or the first, but it's
yeah.
yeah.
The second,
right. No, Megan, I think that's a really good point of just like the generations of families that have been here, and I think that's promising for generations to come for the various communities that we have in California because we're so lucky to have so many different cultures come together here. Um, so to kind of bring it all together, um, what can you both say about the community you built through Social Hour, and what is Social Hour Run Club?
and I think with Social Run Club, it's kind of evolved since we started and to what it is now. Something I'm really proud of is one thing that's always been at the forefront is community. And so I'm really proud of the community we've built, the communities we support as far as like running in different cities, and also like the social responsibility that we've kind of had with like supporting causes that we believe in now, which has been really great. I think with another thing I'm very proud of with Social Hour Run Club is that people always come back week by week, and so there's something that we're building that is speaking to them. Whether it's trying to just make friends when you're in your mid to late 30s or in your it's hard to make friends, I think, at our age outside of I think being in a sport or like if you're not in school, like I think it's a really interesting age of trying to find communities that you could really relate to someone, and running's that vehicle for us. And I'm glad that people always come out and support and feel something when they come to Social Hour. So that's something I'm really proud of with it.
When did you guys establish it?
So we started in like 2016.
Okay.
I got more serious about it in 2018. Very humble beginnings. So briefly in 2016, I used to go out to another run club. It's back when Nike used to have run clubs, and so I had a great experience with the community part of it. I'd hang out with my friends that I made out of there, and they stopped doing it, and so I was like, I want to keep this going, and so I tried to host my own runs, and it was great the first day, but there was days where we had 1 to 2 runners, or I would just show up by myself. So it was more
Mm,
persistence thing, and once I brought it back to like Cerritos in 2018 and changed a couple things up, um, it did a little better in Cerritos from word of mouth and just friends. But yeah, ever since then, well, we're in 2023 now. It's kind of grown into something so much different than what I would have pictured it of just being a run club. I think we're more of a social community, and I think I'm very proud of that aspect.
yeah.
Yeah.
I like what you say about humble beginnings because I think we feel that too. Because like this podcast still gets 0 listens, so I'm just kidding. People listen. I'm just kidding. Um, no, but I think that's amazing that you guys have been able to persist through that. Because it could be so easy to get discouraged after that one time of only one person showing up or no people showing up. But you guys have really become such a such a big run club now, and like run clubs are like popping right now. So it's really cool that you guys were able to stick through that. But uh, Megan, was there anything that you wanted to add on to about like the community of Social Hour?
I think I'm really proud and happy to hear Donovan talk about this on a platform because I've been on the sideline in the beginning as a friend, right? Seeing Social Hour start. I wasn't involved in the beginning, but I probably like Facebook message of or I saw it on Facebook at that time. Like, oh, Donovan's doing this run thing. That's cool. And then I lived in Japan for a year and came back, and then I was like, oh, it's a real run club. It's a real thing, and to see how it's grown since then and it speaks to Donovan's persistence and dedication and real passion to create that space. And exciting to like join and partner in it now and have him welcome me into the space. And we've been able to work in a creative way, which I think both of us work in more corporate settings for our day job. So having this outlet to use our other side of our brain in a lack of words. But yeah, I think it's a sacred space for a lot of our folks who count on it as that inclusive, warm, welcoming community. Happens to be, through running, but we've had these types of conversations on our runs and after when we go out to eat. And I think that's the real magic of what has been established and what hopefully will continue for a long time is creating that safety and accomplishing our goals along the way through running and in life, seeing folks go from walking a mile to now running a full marathon to qualifying for the Boston Marathon.
Yeah.
Celebrating their weddings or, new jobs and stuff like that. So it's really exciting. Like you said, running in general is popping off, and I'm excited to see where it might lead our community and how we can, uplift the folks and members in our group.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I can't even imagine like what it used to look like, because I only went to like the one event that we collaborated on, the Lululemon event that we did, and like the number of people who showed up and how much production went into it, and like the coffee meetup afterward, and how like so many members didn't just do the run, like they stayed for the whole thing, so like those humble beginnings, to me, is hard to imagine it being so humble because of my time with being cued in with it all. But I could really relate to the making friends part. I mean, I'll literally bleep out your voices when you say this, but do you mind if I ask your ages?
Yeah, I'm turning
Okay.
in a couple weeks.
I just turned last week, so.
Okay. In the edit, that will be bleeped out so that you guys are both 23, and
we'll bleep it out,
Yeah, we're all 23 here, but like I could totally relate to that, because I mean I'm only just now actually just turned 25, and like even after college, like it's so much harder to make friends. Like a lot of the friends I've made so far through playing basketball, we've cycled in teammates, and then we meet their girlfriends and stuff, and then at least everyone like kind of getting to know each other. So like it's really hard to make friends, and like the social part, like of actual social hour run club, is really cool. So, but Donovan, with the 2016, like creating it, was that what you had in mind when you wanted to create this, or what inspired you to start social hour?
Honestly, I think at the root of it, it was just to hang out with friends. That's why I think it's been like so like nice, because I mean, like I said, running was the vehicle of it, but we really just got together to hang out afterwards and get to know each other, and I think that's still true with what social hour is now. And so yeah, 2016, like, I mean, I don't think you ever think about creating a run club as like, even like a job or a passion project, right? It came out very organically in that sense. And yeah, I always like tell Megan, I'm like, I never thought this would be like a thing that's gone on for, what is it, 7 years now, but it's pretty much been like one of the pillars of my identity, at least. So yeah, it's just kind of crazy to think about for me.
Yeah, totally. I think that's relatable for, I mean, Changing Tides, it started as 4 college students who were just like, how come no one's talking about mental health? And now we're a program of Little Tokyo Service Center that's been around for 5 years. It's like, it's crazy where some people, or just 1 or 2, 4 people could come together and think like, what if we tried this out? And then it could become something so much more. And you mentioned it being such like a core part of who you are. What role does like movement play in physical and mental health for you? And I'll start with Donovan, but I want to ask you both.
So, I mean, I think when you're running and you're kind of moving your body, it really is a time to take your mind off of what the stressors in life could be. Whether you're having a hard day at work, or, whatever reason might be stressing you out. Really just going for a run and clearing your head, and just taking one step at a time where you don't have to worry about those things. Or you could do the opposite and really think about those things, because it's just you and your thoughts. It could go either way, I think, but I think having that space to run and then, with endorphins and just feeling better because you're moving and sweating, I feel like it helps. It translates to your mental health for sure. And that's what I think I use movement for a lot. And then yeah, I think that's really the good tie about it. I think with people coming out of social hour, they're able to do the same thing, and we can provide that space for them to do it as well. So.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, Megan, I'm going to get to ask you, but I want to ask, like, as a follow up, I know you mentioned playing basketball like at a younger age. Like, how did you navigate from sport to sport? Because I know Social Hour has done some volleyball stuff too, but like, what brought you specifically to running? Was it like something that you and your friends did to stay in shape, or was it something that you were just like, why not? Or did you always have a love for it?
Well, so running was always like something you didn't like because you played basketball. That was your punishment or what you had to do,
Right.
stay in shape for the sport you're playing, right? Um, for me, when I was going to Hawaii, I really wanted to get in shape and get a six pack, and that's why I'm running. And a lot of people expect like some crazy story that I got into running, but that's really the way I got into it. And then I signed up for a race like following that Hawaii trip. And that's kind of when I caught the bug when you're not yelled at to run and you're running because you want to run. And their internal intrinsic values that push you to run versus someone telling you, I think running is a way more enjoyable. What a concept, right? So I think that's what happened. And I signed up for a couple of races, trial and error with some marathons. I know Megan could tell you. I have some stories that probably won't be appropriate for this podcast about my marathon training and failures.
Mm.
But it's all a part of the journey that I've gone through, and in my running journey, that's still continuing. So
Got it. Yeah, it's so funny because that I was literally thinking like, wow, imagine if coaches from a young age, like high school coaches or club coaches, were like, let me bring in a sports psychologist to like train my kids to know that like running could be enjoyable because then like your team's gonna be in better shape. You're gonna, they're gonna enjoy it. But like, there really was trauma with playing in the JA leagues with like need to do laps or lines, like I can't even, I hated running. I caught a bug for a little bit, but then like I kind of made my way back to basketball. But like, yeah, like once you learn to enjoy it, I was thinking about like how much I used to hate it because it's so funny how much
and
like
also one thing like with social hour, and I was telling my friend Amy about this. When I first started the run club too, one of the main things I also wanted to get across with running is because she'd be like, "Why are you running so much? You're always running." And I'm like, "I'm trying to make running cool." So that was one of the things too. And that's why I think it's so crazy how popular run clubs are now because I think we are. I think I can safely say that we're probably one of the like older run clubs, not for our community's age, but more for like we kind of we got in early with the whole run club craze because it's such a great time to be a runner because there's so many run clubs in every city now. And
totally.
I don't see it as competition. I think it's just the golden age for a runner to get into a community. And if they could share the same experience that I've kind of had with social hour, then more power to the runners. But I'm glad running's cool now, or at least to some people. I know we haven't got everyone to translate over, but I'm hoping to get you to one of the runs, man. If you get out here, we got a 1.5 mile option, so
It'll
we're trying to make it the barriers. So like we're trying to eliminate those barriers
totally.
with food and short distances. So.
It will if it could get me to buy because I really like all the running shoes out now. So if it's an excuse for me to buy a pair of new running shoes, then I'll make my way out pretty soon. I actually will make it my way out. I'm not just saying it for the recording, but if anything, you have proof against me now.
Yeah.
And Megan, sorry it took me so long to get to you, but movement for you, did you grow up playing sports or was social hour your introduction? But in all of it, in the whole journey of movement, what role has that played in both physical and mental health?
Yes, I've been moving since before I was born. I have an older sister, Tracy, and then me, and all my relatives said I popped out and I was rolling around and escaped from my crib when I was a baby. And I think just my earliest memories are literally running around with my cousins and with my sister and chasing whoever. And so, yes, I was involved in sports, mainly basketball, just because of our community. Both of my parents played, and my family, it's kind of a prerequisite as a child. But I was reflecting, I wasn't as competitive. I didn't take it as seriously as some of my peers. I just honestly enjoyed moving, and I think that's just a part of who I am. Dancing, walking. I walk, Don knows this, at least once, twice a day to get, all of that out of my system. And more recently, with all of these tools and vocabulary about mental health, it really has become, that was my first form of therapy. Being alone with your thoughts, for better or worse, whether it's clearing your head or, like Don said, having to face it and think about it for an hour when you're running your long run. So it definitely is a huge part of who I am and how I navigate through the world. And it's nice to be able to share that with other folks now. It's necessary sometimes to do it alone, and I enjoy that, but to be able to have that shared struggle, what is it? Not trauma bonding, maybe to some extent. Like, marathon training is hard. It's
totally
hours and almost like a full-time, part-time job. So being able to share that experience and know that others are going through it with you. But movement is a very positive space for me to be in, and grateful, even more so now, to be able to move my body and hopefully can sustain that for the long run.
And the downside of sports is the injuries. And I've dealt with, like, I still, like, can't fully like Asian squat sometimes, because my ankles I've had so many ankle injuries, they're so tight now that I just don't have the mobility to, like, full Asian squat. Sometimes I can do it, but sometimes not so good. So I know you've both dealt with some pretty tough injuries that long rehab, until you're fully 100%. But, like, what injuries have you both battled? But, like, how has that recovery impacted your mental health?
I'll let you start with this. Mine is a long list, so maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, yes, I have had a recent injury. I tore my ACL and meniscus in a traumatic contact injury playing basketball. So I went up for a layup and I made it. And as I have to put that in there.
Good, of course.
And as I was landing, just got completely side swept and knocked down, and felt the instant pop and sound, and just screamed more out of fear because I've never felt something like that.
Yeah.
And eventually calmed down. But yeah, I ended up completely tearing my ACL and one of my menisci. And so mine was acute onset. It happened right away. I knew within that week, after getting MRI and all of that, scheduled my surgery, and kind of just knew. And my sister has went through it, of course, just playing basketball, friends and family. And so I had some idea of what it meant, but it is a long, grueling process that you have to be patient with. And as someone who really values movement, it was mentally challenging to try to envision life without that for a while. And being on the other side, it's been about 1 year exactly from when I got my surgery. I think we tend to black out those hard parts, but if I look at videos, or when you'll hear later Don go through it again, it brought it all back, and it is tough to see your body change and have to bring it back and start from scratch on how to bend and straighten your leg, let alone walk, and then now being able to run. So a lot of lessons and resilience.
All right, sir. Let's break out the scrolls of the
Yeah.
list.
So injury wise, so before I tore my ACL the first time, I deal with like random ankle injury. So I feel like I recovered from with the Asian squat stuff because as you probably could tell, I probably can't do one right now personally.
Right.
Um, so I tore my ACL in 2015, I believe, on doing a Euro step. So I was probably in the best shape of my life. I was in a adult league and I did a Euro step and I went one way and my knee went the other way. So I can
Oh,
picture what that looks like. And so, being young, I didn't think anything of it. It was obviously I took a couple of days off and I essentially kept like playing on it and run and like hiking, running on it, and it would just like eventually it would just get worse and worse. So eventually I went to get it checked, and lo and behold, torn ACL, fully torn, meniscus torn. So I'm pretty sure I made it worse.
yeah, I would think so.
Yeah, and so I went to rehab. I got the surgery, and I tried coming back to basketball a little too quick, and I'm almost sure that I kind of tore my ACL right off the bat pretty soon after I got back from rehab.
The same
Uh,
one.
yeah, it was like probably 4 or 5 months after rehab.
Oh my
I came
gosh.
back too quick thinking I was Superman and young. And yeah, so I've kind of been dealing before the second surgery on my ACL, I've been basically running on a torn ACL, and the after re-tearing it, after the first recovery, I was scared to play basketball after that. I actually just didn't, I just started playing again in the Budokan League. Um, and so I took about a 5 year break from basketball because I was just so scared to play.
Yeah.
I had a feeling it was torn already. And luckily, I think just living on it, basically strengthened it enough to where I could get through one season. But I went through some other health problems towards the end of last year. I had a pulmonary embolism and a DVT in my leg, so blood clots essentially.
Oh wow.
So that was all settled, and I'm dealing with it and healthy from that. But they basically scanned my leg and confirmed that the ACL was torn and completely gone
Mm.
again, and that my meniscus was injured again. So I had surgery earlier this year. I'm about 4 months from surgery and recovering and kind of jogging again. So I'm just kind of going through that, and
Oh my gosh.
gonna take my time, and just seeing Megan go through her recovery has definitely given me the positivity to get through this too. And obviously, I want us to both. We both have very strong running goals in the future, and that's what's kind of been getting me through this whole process because I've seen Megan go through it, and she looks great. She's gonna, I hope, play basketball again soon, and she's running her first marathon or second marathon next year since an LA marathon.
Wow.
And so when I have those down times, I kind of just think back. You've been through this before. You have the wisdom not to come back too early, and you've seen Megan go through it in such a successful and graceful way with recovery, and so that's kind of what I'm holding on to, and prevents me from kind of getting on the lows and the downs of recovering because you can't move for a while, right? And I'm at these runs and seeing everyone run. I'm like going over these announcements and all right, I'll see you guys when we get back.
Oh man.
Sucks,
Yeah.
luckily there's a lot of work that goes behind running a run club, so I could work on that stuff. But just losing the ability to run really could put a damper in your mood, and you don't get the endorphins that you're used to, and you take basically I felt like I took it for granted after tearing it again. So now that I'm able to jog, it's been nice and work out, and I'm slowly getting back into it. So that's really good, but challenging at times as well.
Did you ever want to like not quit because you're gonna have to walk again eventually, right? But like,
Yeah.
did you ever want to stop with this like social hour or sports or?
I mean, basketball, after the first one, after kind of re-tearing it, I was like, I'm done playing basketball. And it sucked because I grew up playing basketball. So it was all I knew at one point. And And so I think at that time I was pretty close to being done with basketball. From running, and I always tell people this, like, I don't think social hour happens if I didn't tear my ACL the first time, because one
Hmm.
of my goals was to run again. And that's how I was able to, see what a run club was. Because I wanted to do that instead of basketball, and it kind of fulfilled a lot of the stuff that basketball did for me. Like, from a competitive standpoint, not that I was running competitively, but I'd be able to push myself with like other runners as like teammates or something. And so I think everything happens for a reason. I think, tearing it the first time, I honestly don't think I would have had the time to plan out or or do social hour if it wasn't for that. So I think it was kind of a blessing in disguise, at least for the first time. And
Wow.
who knows, maybe the second one is another blessing in disguise that I haven't seen yet.
Oh my goodness. I've yeah, I could relate to the like kind of like being scared to come back to sports because I feel like you almost don't trust your body like right after, even if you've done the rehab. It's hard because like you'll see it in how someone runs. They'll kind of still run with a limp, or they still favor one side of their body. Like I don't know how many times I've like torn ligaments in my ankles. Like that's always the thing. It's always like such a bad ankle sprain. Like to the point where now if I play basketball and I slightly step funny, like it'll hurt for a week. And like I haven't torn an ACL or a meniscus or anything, but like even when it comes to that, like you still favor one leg, and then that results in like a muscle imbalance, I think. But then like it just results in being more likely to get hurt when you don't trust your body fully. So it's tough. You're rehabbing, and then you go through the full rehab, and then you still have the mental block. It's tough. But yeah, like on the side of perseverance, is there have you got could you see ways where like your lessons in sports or in running has translated to day to day?
Yeah, I think, and I've been to a few conferences. I've worked in sports for a little bit of my career, and being around as a female, as a woman, I think there's a lot that I've learned and gained through sport. I think being able to that competitiveness and being rewarded for that in sport, right? If you're scrappy and go after the ball and work hard, you get rewarded and your team might win. Where in other spaces, it might be seen as you're bossy or you're too aggressive.
Mm.
Leadership, teamwork, all those cliche things, I think it really does impact you. But I think the biggest thing is community and confidence in yourself has translated into all parts of my life. Coming from JA basketball as well, I think other skills like event planning, we have the best potlucks. I mean, little things like that I
Yeah.
reflect on, and a lot of the things I remember and appreciate most are those snacks afterwards, or celebrating our birthdays together, hanging out with my sister's team as a sibling and being embraced in those groups. So I think that it's twofold: the actual athleticism part of it and working hard towards a goal, and then with a team sport like basketball, working together towards a goal translates to life. And running, which I've kind of drifted a lot more towards as of late. It's maybe it is part of mental health too, is knowing that when you put in this work, it's going to pay off, and you can kind of control it in some sense of,
Mm-hmm.
I have this goal of running a marathon. I have this training plan for 16 weeks. And if I follow it and being able to check off those boxes, I got my 5 miles in today, I'm doing 15 next week. That part feels good, to have that tangible goal set in front of you and to check it off and do it. So those are some examples, but I point back to a lot of lessons through in life gained from sport and the communities and experiences I've gained part of it.
Yeah, I mean, sports, like Megan, I grew up playing sports pretty much all my life as well. And I think the teamwork and leadership aspect of it is something that, one, I could take a soul shower and also in my day job as well. like just being able to work in with interpersonal communication and just relationships with your teammates, that's stuff you take over to how you handle things at work or how you handle things at social hour. And so I think a lot of that, just kind of piggybacking what Megan said, is a lot of stuff that we probably don't see, but it just kind of happens unknowingly that you notice that these things are carrying over to what you do from the day to day. So
yeah, I think that's very well said. I don't have anything else to add to that. I was going to try to segue that into something else, but I just think that's I don't know how to. But with that, I'm coming towards the end of my questions. But what is on the horizon for the two of you in social hour? Maybe that entry will lead to your next inspiration. But what is currently on the horizon for you guys?
So I think we're going to close out the year. We have a couple of races that are coming up, and it's a year-round thing, so there's always races. But our next big project is the Honolulu Marathon. So we have some runners that are going to be first-time marathon runners that are running it, and we have people doing the 10K, but maybe doing their first race in Hawaii. And one of the longer-term projects that we want to do is kind of cultivate that relationship in Hawaii. I think we've had a runner, shout out to Aaron, that has done it 3 years in a row. But Megan and I are trying to do it at least a year, every other year, to go to Hawaii and kind of build some relationships out there so that we could maybe do some cool stuff with them, or do some cool stuff in Hawaii, and support in any way we can. But yeah, in the future, like I said, races, but we're trying to like work on merchandise and how we could do more social impact through that, and building our sports reach with like basketball, volleyball, and even pickleball, with the fastest growing sport in America. Obviously, we have to tackle that. But we had some volleyball clinics last year, and we want to kind of build on that. How can we kind of have more people part of this social hour umbrella, where they could maybe try sports out and then go into running, or vice versa, do running and get into sports. And then really trying to focus on the social impact part of it that's kind of evolved from social hour, like working with you guys and some other organizations. How do we build that relationship so it's fulfilling and, like continual and impactful way for both of us. So that's why we always come back to Changing Tides and love to do stuff with you guys. So really, that's kind of what I see in the future. And now that Megan's kind of in the fold of like the planning and stuff, I think I've taken social hour to a point where it's great, but maybe we've plateaued in a couple things. And so bringing in Megan and having a fresh eye on some of the stuff we do, it's really refreshing for me, because I have trouble asking for help sometimes, and Megan could probably attest to that. And it's nice to have a partner that's so involved in and kind of in the same line of thinking, and kind of believes in what you're doing, and sees where it can go. And maybe I don't have that lens, and we could talk that out and build it into something even greater than what it is right now. So yeah,
that's great. Megan, is there anything else that you guys are looking forward to?
Yeah, I think everything that Don said, but the social impact piece, and I think it's even curating experiences like this for our runners to look within themselves. We have captains who help lead our runs, and one of our goals is also to just listen, to hear what our community needs, because we're a small sample of our larger community. So when we talk to them and hear what inspires them or what causes they care about, what they're going through in their lives, and knowing that some things work. We're not necessarily going to change our marathon training plans, but we can change which organizations we support, or how we promote, what businesses we eat at after our runs. So I think that's something we really want to get to do, is get to know and really listen and hear our community, both our members and the spaces we run through. Like Don said, we run through Artesia and Cerritos area mostly, and seeing what issues are happening, or how can we get involved to help the city, the communities in general move and feel safe and be on their feet. So that's really exciting. I think that as AAPI identifying folks, also that space naturally where we're at geographically as well, we attract a lot of fellow AAPI across the spectrum. So being able to showcase that and connect other folks to those traditions or heritages is something exciting. And I think personally, coming back from these injuries, we do really want to set those big goals of running a race together, maybe a world major. I really am putting this out there that I'm going to run the Tokyo 2025 marathon.
Oh, that's awesome.
In a couple of years, and just knowing that you can do, as cliche as it sounds, what you put your mind to, and running shows that time and time again that your mind is so much stronger than your body.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think for us also, spending time with our family and our parents and our sisters and family is really important. So that's been a big priority and exciting to see and learn about each other's cultures and histories and all of that.
That's awesome. I don't have any other questions except for like my fun little quick fire round. But before that, is there anything else you'd like to say that we didn't get to?
I think you covered a lot of it, so kudos to you for creating these questions.
Thank you.
But no, I just want to say thank you, Matt, for having us on. I'm glad that we found each other and could work on projects like this, and we look forward to seeing how we can support you guys at Changing Tides and other events, and even utilizing some of the services you offer for our runners and kind of highlighting those with our platform so that there's awareness, maybe not just Little Tokyo, but also outside as well, and they could tune into you guys. So thank you.
Totally.
Same. Thank you for this opportunity to reflect. We were kind of nervous, and I think it's so refreshing to be able to have a kind of prompted reason to reflect and celebrate a lot of exciting things and accomplishments. So thank you for providing that space for us and everyone else who gets a chance to do this.
Yeah. Well, the benefit of 0 listeners is that there's no pressure of anyone hearing it, right? So, but I do have some quick fire questions. I think I cued you guys into this one to be prepared about if you could invite 3 people to dinner, dead or alive, who would they be?
I did listen to other podcasts,
Okay.
so I would know these questions. So, but I was like Megan, like they would all be basketball players to me, to be honest.
That's
I'm a
fair.
huge NBA fan, so Kobe would be one of mine. Megan actually worked for the Lakers while Kobe was there, so
Oh, that's awesome.
she actually got the real experience. I heard a funny one about Obama last time. That was hilarious. The way I thought through those.
Kevin King, who I went to high school with.
Oh.
No way. That's so, what a small, I mean, everyone knows each other in this community.
What else would I have? So from inspiration of that, it would probably be like Spider-Man or Tom Holland.
Okay, that's cool. What an interesting group.
Right. And I think it would probably be like my grandma that I was able to meet, that passed away, because a lot of my grandparents passed away a little earlier, before I was born. So I was able to at least meet with her, and we got to talk. With the language barrier, it was kind of tough, but kind of just being able to talk to her and eat her cooking again, so she could get a dinner too, and all help. So yeah,
that's awesome. And Megan, what about you?
Oh my God, I'm so bad at this. I am not a super fan of anything or anyone, sadly. I'm like, whenever someone's like favorite actress, favorite whatever singer, mine is very sentimental, I think. I would love to, I always tell Donovan this and my niece, have dinner or just be able to spend time with my paternal grandparents, Grandma Ono and Grandpa Ono, who passed away. Grandma was 3 years ago and Grandpa before then, but I truly think like my grandma and Donovan would be the best of friends, and I would love to be able to spend time with them. So it would be them, and then if I could, my great grandmother Mine Ito, who I just hear stories about, and I feel like we share a lot of the same spirits of being pioneering female leaders in community, and just all the stories I've heard about her. I would just love to see that connection and all that. So yeah, very sentimental for me.
Oh, that's awesome. I think either way, I love hearing both responses. Um, do you guys ever get competitive with each other when you guys run or play sports?
Well, it's mostly me getting competitive, so I make up this like scenario in my head, like, oh man, Megan's like talking smack, or like she wants this as bad as I do. I really have to beat her and show her, and so yeah, we do. I'd say ping pong, when we're playing each other, pickleball when we're playing with each other on the same team. That can get kind of mean and competitive, and also basketball. So yeah, I would say so. Yeah,
Yeah, but it's good. It's fun to have that push.
yeah.
It never gets toxic, but yeah, he tries to push me, but I'm pretty zen most of the time and just block it out.
Yeah, definitely. I like winning a lot, and especially things I know I could probably win at. So if it's like, and I'll get competitive against like the OCBC pickleball 70-year-olds that I'm playing against, and then Megan will be like, oh, like chill about it, and I'm like, Meg, we're losing 8-0. I get like wanting to let them score, but I'm not trying to lose by like by double digits. So, so that's just me and my competitiveness in it. But I think it's healthy for
Yeah.
us.
I think Lauren and I know to not play sports or competitions with each other because we know it could get rough. Because I'm I think we're both very competitive people, so yeah, we have to know our boundaries. Um, what sport out there would you like to play either for the first time that you've always been interested in, or that you want to bring to social hour, if you have the time and capacity to do so?
I think golf would be a good one. I already know we have a big golf community in social hour. Um, I've been to the driving ranges once in a while. Another good way to work on your mental health if you're angry. Um, but yeah, I think golf would be a good one. I just it's just something I haven't took the time to try out. And I know that a lot of our members would welcome it. So that's probably the sport I would choose.
I would say surfing.
Ooh,
I'm from South Bay as well, so I grew up, and my dad and uncles and everyone, we grew up in the water, and I think it's a totally different environment to work with nature and use your intuition, and um yeah, that would be really fun for me personally to get back into it, and to have other folks who can use the lessons of patience and intuition that you learn in surfing to help their running as well.
totally. That's super cool. Um, Finally, where can people find you, and how could they support or get involved?
Yeah, so you could find us mostly on Instagram's our main platform, I would say. So Social Hour Run Club on Instagram. For you non-Instagram users, we have our website at socialhourrunclub.com, as well as Facebook if you use Facebook. I personally don't update it as often as I'd like, so I would say Instagram's your best choice. But so you could find us also at our 3 runs that we host every week. So we run at Cypress College at 7 p.m. On Tuesday. On Wednesday, we're at Nilly's Burger Shop at 7 p.m. We have 1.5, 3, and 6 mile options. We kind of use that one as the community run if you're not really into running to come out. And then on Saturdays, we run at Bakers and Baristas at 8 p.m. or 8 a.m. And we have a 6:15 option as well, for those curious to do a longer run. And if you don't remember anything I said, just check out the Instagram.
Yeah.
Very cool.
We're also at a lot of the local races. So if you're running the Long Beach Marathon, Surf City and Huntington Beach, the OC Marathon down in Newport, those are our main races. And if you're not a runner and you want to come out and just see what it's all about, I love inviting folks to come out to our cheer stations. It's really inspiring to see folks of all walks of life running their race. So we're there, we visit, we have folks running in Berlin and Chicago and all over the world. So
Wow.
if you ever are curious to come out, you can find us.
Plus, we also offer a lot of like discounts for our runners. So if you ever want to sign up for those races, or just products that with the brands we work with, we get a lot of discounts for that, and then also offer free classes at like Barry's Boot Camp, for instance. So there's a lot of value I think we provide to our runners in that sense, and it's all free. So I think, yeah, check us out if you're ever curious about the Run Club.
That's awesome. One thing that just came to mind is that I think is really special about these run clubs, especially when they run at night, is I think a lot of women, especially, like it's if we're being honest, it's a very real fear to run alone at night. But a lot of people like to run at night, and maybe it's the only time that they can find. So to find a run club that provides a lot of more safety than just running alone at night. So I think that's a really great additional factor to social hour or run clubs in general is the community. Again, community comes up big, and there's safety in community. So I just think that's a really cool aspect to these run clubs as well. And can people wear headphones, or do they have to talk?
Oh no, you could wear headphones, especially if I'm running next to you, because I will talk to you.
Got it.
Well,
So yeah,
at
least there's a safety net of having the others running with you. So there's that. Well, that's all I got for you both. I look forward to seeing you both again soon. And yeah, I think I have some ideas that actually came to mind while we were talking. So we could chat about that. But yeah, I look forward to seeing what's next for you guys. I look forward to being a part of it. And I look forward to coming out to my first official run with you guys. That's not like a collaboration, like me just going. I'm going to do it. I promise.
You're going to do a collab post for your first run.
All right, guys. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Matthew.
See ya.
Thank you to Donovan and Megan for jumping on the podcast and discussing Social Hour Run Club, for discussing the resiliency in sports injuries, to discuss the communities, whether it be JA or Filipino Community or the Social Hour Run Club community. I really appreciate how much they emphasize that. And, I just love the both of them, and I'm really looking forward to what we have in store with Changing Tides and Social Hour, because I'm sure we're going to find more spaces to share together. But if you enjoyed this episode, you could subscribe to our show for episodes that release every other Tuesday, and give us a rating or review on your favorite podcast platform. If you would like to support our podcast and help us grow, you can do so with a donation to the link at the bottom of the episode description. To hear more about Changing Tides, follow us on Instagram at LTSC_Changing Tides, or check out our website, thechangingtides.org. Let's continue to change the tide on mental health. Yeah.